As always, nothing you hear on the Stripped Pod should be a substitute for personalised professional medical advice. Please always consult your clinician or other medical professional before making any changes to your diet, dosages, or healthcare plan. Hello and welcome to the Stripped Pod, your weekly diabetes fix where we strip back the stigma for real, honest conversations about diabetes beyond the numbers.
I'm Ash, a passionate diabetes advocate and founder of Strip Supply.
And I'm Braden, co-host of The Art of Working Pancreas.
Coming up on today's pod, we're joined by Liam Tribe, aka the Practical Diabetic, and he is giving us the lowdown from the Advanced Technologies and Treatment for Diabetes Congress that took place in Barcelona earlier this month. Man, try saying that 5 times fast.
Yeah, nah, you did well there. That was pretty good.
Thank you very much.
Proud of you.
But Braden, tell me, what has been the high and the low of your week?
Good question. The high, I guess I'm recovering from obviously the wisdom tooth surgery still. So I've started getting back into exercising, which is nice, and a bit of normality in life. I've started eating normally. There's no pain anymore, so everything's looking up. And I guess I've got my endocrinologist appointment actually next week. So we'll find out in next week's episode how that goes, but everything should be fine there. So I've got that next week, and I mean that's about it for me. There's nothing else to report on. Everything's looking up in terms of the teeth, so that's good news. And I've stayed away from steroid tablets, which is fantastic. So we're winning.
The real question on everyone's minds, and mainly because it's on my mind, have you had a steak yet?
No, not yet.
Not
I
yet.
think I that seems like a task that's still a little bit too daunting. So I've had sausages. They were good.
Getting closer and closer.
I reckon I'm pretty close. I'm pretty close.
Yeah.
The one thing is that's really annoying is like I constantly just get food caught in like the holes where my teeth used to be.
Yeah.
And so I'm always fishing food out of there. And I feel like a steak, like I might get half a steak stuck in my jaw. I'm not sure. So we'll see how we go with that one, but I'll get to that. Hopefully sooner rather than later.
Hopefully, giving the listeners a really nice visual there, by the way,
Yeah.
of you getting food out of
Yeah.
your mouth holes.
Constantly fishing food out of everywhere in my mouth at the moment. I'm like notorious for taking a swig of water and just like swishing it around my mouth just to try and loosen up the food. So anyone who's been through wisdom surgery knows exactly what I'm talking about.
Oh, 100%.
It's not fun. Yeah.
I do remember when I got my wisdom teeth out, it takes your kind of muscle memory in your mouth and your tongue to get used to there not being teeth there anymore. Or I don't know.
Yeah, it's weird. It's
Yeah,
weird.
it's really
Like
weird.
I always find myself just with my tongue, just like what's happening back there.
No,
Yeah,
I
it's a bit
couldn't.
strange.
I avoided it at all costs. The whole thing made me nauseous.
We won't dive into more detail there. What's happening with you? What's the high and low of your week?
Look, we talked off mic about how we both feel like we've just been really boring lately. But the high was it's been beautiful weather in Sydney lately. A lot of Sydneyites probably may not agree with me because everyone's complaining about how humid it is. But I think the weather is beautiful. We finally found a friend who has a boat. So life goal unlocked. And
Yeah.
went out on Sydney Harbour on the weekend, went for a little dip in the ocean, in some little beaches and coves, saw some fish, drank wine on a boat. It was a wonderful day. So that was
God,
definitely
sounds
my high.
terrible.
Doesn't sound awful. It
Ah,
was.
wow. That
Still
sounds
regretting
horrible.
it to this day.
It's good to have friends like
It's
that.
good to have friends like that.
Ah,
And honestly, I don't think that I have any lows.
just trucking
I'll
along.
Just tracking along. I'll tell you what, because I was away in Adelaide last week, I brought home with me a mound of washing.
Yeah.
So on the weekend, I did 5 loads of washing in one day.
Mhm.
And we live in an apartment, a very kind of small studio apartment, and so there's no washing line. So Kmart has this great clothes horse, which is like a stand for your washing, and then there's this bit that like goes up and over the stand to hang clothes on.
Yeah.
And on the weekend, I did learn that 5 loads of washing was too much washing for that clothes stand because it
Yeah.
did collapse and
Yeah, that's a lot.
totally break. So Look,
Bummer.
that's my low. If that's my low, I'm having a pretty good week.
That's pretty good. Yeah, that's not too bad if it's just your clothes stand breaking. Happy
Yeah.
days.
Yeah. And you've
Another
just
trip
reminded
to
me,
Kmart.
yeah, I need to go to Kmart. So actually, you
Yeah.
know what? That's a high.
Any excuse to go to Kmart, right? How good.
Any excuse.
Oh, brilliant.
Well, without further ado, should we chat all things tech and treatment with Leon?
Let's do it. Let's dive in. So let's dive into today's episode. And today I'm joined by Leon Tribe, aka the Practical Diabetic, where he's a tech consultant by day and by night he shares clear, real world info for people with all types of diabetes. He's recently attended the Advanced Technologies and Treatments for Diabetes Congress. And Leon, we're all so keen to hear about what you soaked up at the conference and how you think it'll shape, obviously, the future of diabetes tech and diabetes care. But Leon, welcome to the pod. Thanks for taking the time to come on.
Oh, no, thanks for having me. Glad to be here.
We'll dive into getting to know you a bit first, Leon, before we dive into the conference that you recently attended. And I'm told that your diagnosis journey is a little bit different to what we usually hear. Can you talk me through your diagnosis with diabetes and how long you've been diabetic?
Yeah, so I've just had my diversary, which
Yep.
was at the start of March, and that was 9 years. So, as you can tell, didn't get it as a child from the little bit of greys you can see on the corners here. So, yeah, as you mentioned, my day job's in tech. And yeah, 9 years ago, I was up at your end of the woods, actually. I was up at the Gold Coast
Good spot.
presenting at a conference on technology. And I was on stage for an hour, but the problem I was having was I was, just going, I was peeing a lot. I was peeing like every half an hour, full bladder, and that was going to make for a messy presentation in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
But I managed to get through it. And so I got home and said something to my wife, which I never say, which is I think I need to go to the doctor. And I didn't know a lot about diabetes, but I knew that was one of the signs that possibly I had something called diabetes. I didn't know about types. I knew very little. I went to the doc, and even though by the time I got to the doctor, I'd been fasting for over 12 hours, I was still up at 15
Yeah.
in the scale. So I was about triple the blood sugars I should have been.
Mm.
He suggested rather than going home, I go straight to ER, and so I did, because he was fearing that I was, approaching DKA, as I've now figured out.
Yeah.
And the hospital basically rehydrated me. They tested me. I had lots of ketones, but they were a bit confused about whether they were starvation ketones or whether that was, something more serious. And so they, because I'm a let's portly middle-aged man, shall we say, they decided I was type 2 diabetic. So for a couple of weeks, I was an honorary type 2. Fortunately, my GP knew a little bit about diabetes and said, let's get your antibodies tested.
Yeah.
And I got 3 of them tested, and they were pretty much off the scale. GAD was literally off the scale. And he said, yeah, you're not type 2, you're a type 1.
Wow.
And as it turned out, I was what's called LADA, latent autoimmune diabetes in adulthood, which is basically type 1, but it's a much slower progressing form of type 1. So for the first 5 years, I didn't need insulin at all, which is,
Wow.
unusual for type 1s.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm now, and that was, as I say, that was 9 years ago. So for the last 4 years, been using insulin. But yeah, a bit of an unusual journey perhaps for type 1s. Not an uncommon story for LADAs, though. A lot of LADAs get misdiagnosed as type 2, and then when their pancreas really starts failing, then they get reclassified as type 1s.
What a roller coaster of a diagnosis, and for that first 5 years to not need insulin. I imagine that would have been quite tricky. So now, you're insulin dependent now? Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
So and everything I read about LADA, it was saying, oh, you'll probably be sort of insulin free for a few months. And so I just learned everything I could in those first few months. I
Yeah.
just went hard. But yeah, as it turned out, I had 5 years, so I had a bit of a catch up. But yeah,
Yeah.
now I'm fully insulin dependent.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got to wear the pump, so I'm using the Ipso pump.
Yep.
Dexcom G6, although I might be going to the Libre. I'm still deciding whether to shift to Libre or not.
Yeah.
And using the CAM-APS software, which comes with the Ipso pump in Australia.
Yeah. And how are you finding the Ipso pump and the CGM that you've got?
It's really good. So I'm a bit unusual in that I run it fully closed. So I don't declare meals. I just let it run, and it does a good enough job that I don't need to do that. Now, whether that's because of the medications I take, because I take a whole bunch of medications on top of using the pump.
Yeah.
Whether that's because I'm LADA, I might have a little bit of pancreatic function left. I'm not sure, but
Yeah.
yeah, I managed to get away with, and I don't eat stupidly.
Yeah.
But I managed to get away with not having to declare meals, and it sort of, once it sees a peak or a bit of a spike going up, it just gives me a bit more insulin, and that covers me.
Yeah, wow. And that gives you pretty good control doing that method. Like you don't see your blood sugars ranging too high or
No, because with the meds, I rarely go above 10 after a meal. And yeah, my HbA1c is sub 6%. So
yeah,
yeah, I'm
wow.
pretty happy with the results.
Yeah. I mean you can't complain about that at all.
No.
I guess that sort of leads into the next question. Do you have a diabetes hack or habit that you're especially proud of?
Well, outside of the tech and the meds, which is sort of my primary way of doing it, there's a few. There's the one is because I wear with the cannula. So with the pump, you have a little cannula that goes in, you puts the insulin in. Whenever I take them off, they're really itchy. It's just like a severe mosquito bite. And I've tried creams, I've tried all
Yeah.
sorts of things. Nothing works. So what I do now is you get the opsite tape. I don't know if you've seen this. It's like a plastic
No.
sort of wound covering, and you can put it on CGMs and keep CGMs in place. But it's like see-through, but it's air breathable.
Yep.
And you get it from like chemists and stuff like this.
Mhm.
So I just stick that on it. All right. So I still scratch it, but because it's got the plastic coating on there, I don't damage the skin. I'm just scratching plastic.
Yeah.
So that's the hack. Which and then after a day or two, the irritation settles down, and then I just peel the plastic off. That's one hack that I do these days, which is a reasonable compromise. It hasn't fixed the itchiness. I'm still scratching like I've got a
Yeah.
mozzie bite, but I'm not hacking up my skin anymore.
Yeah.
The other one is I've got a bug out bag for diabetes now. Practical Diabetic, my blog, I talk about what I carry for travel and day pack and stuff like this. I basically now got a bag, which whether I'm coming into the office like I did today, whether I'm traveling interstate, it's the one bag where I just basically I can pick it up and just go. And it's just got all the stuff in there that I need. So it's got a finger pricker. It's got my sick day plan. It's got my pump failure plan. Just a whole bunch of stuff in there, which basically will keep me alive for 3 days if I need it.
That's
So
actually really smart because the number of times, every time I go away, I'm finding myself a bag. It might be like a Ziploc bag, a big one or something, and I'm throwing in, infusion sites and CGMs and batteries and all sorts of stuff, and inevitably I forget something every time. So
yeah,
that's a really smart idea.
so it's just something that now I don't have to think. Not thinking is something I enjoy doing.
Yeah, that's
So yeah, I just throw. I've got another bag for the clothes, so I just pack my clothes. I've
Yeah.
also got this spreadsheet, this travel spreadsheet, which it's bordering on OCD, I think, but which tells me exactly what I need to pack whenever I travel overseas or interstate. And so
Brilliant.
I've also got that checklist that I go through to make sure. But yeah, the bug out bag. Like this morning, literally just put my laptop in, picked it up, came to work, and I don't have to think too hard. It's just all going to be in there if I need it.
That's actually really smart. There you go. There's a hot tip for anyone out there, and I'm definitely going to take that one on board. That's for sure. Have you ever had a diabetes whoopsie moment?
Yeah, probably a couple that I can think of. One was when I first got diagnosed. I read a lot about low carb diets and things like this, and they seem like a really good idea. And look, they do work for people, but the problem I had was I went too hard too quick.
Yeah.
And what you can get if you go too hard too quick is my HbA1c dropped. It went from like 9 down to the low 5s or mid 5s. I can't remember exactly now.
Mhm.
But what that does is it puts a lot of pressure on, in this case, your eyes. So there's a thing called EWDR, where the pressure in your eye changes because of that rapid drop.
Yeah, right.
The pressures in your eye changes, and it actually causes damage to the eye. So in my left eye, I can't see straight lines properly now. There's a little sort of blurry
Yeah,
splot
right.
just below
Wow.
where the direction of sight is. And that's as a result of actually going too hard
Wow.
with dropping my HbA1c. Yeah, it's
Wow.
called early worsening of diabetic retinopathy. Well, although I didn't have diabetic retinopathy before diagnosis, or leading up to before I dropped the HbA1c.
Wow, that's
But
crazy.
it's just a bit of a word of warning. So that was a bit of a
Mm.
whoopsie moment, just going a bit too hard. So yeah, if people are looking
Mm.
to follow that approach, by all means, give it a go. But
Be
just
careful.
ease into it, right? Just don't drop your HbA1c by 3% over 6 months like I did.
Yeah.
The other one was I was using Mounjaro. So I got prescribed Mounjaro as a sort of an adjunct therapy to type 1. And you can use clicks to sort of inject certain amounts, and there's always a little bit at the end. And no one had told me to do this, but I thought, wow, it seems a bit of a waste, and those Mounjaro pens are quite expensive. So I thought, wow, the next dose I'll just use that little bit at the end instead. But I hadn't done the calculations. I literally gave myself triple my normal dose
Oh no.
in that one hit. So you do it once a week, right? So I'd give myself triple the dose, and so I'm calling up my endocrinologist friends and stuff. They're saying,
Yeah.
and they were, you're just gonna have to write it out.
Yeah.
Just,
Yeah.
you're not gonna feel great for a couple of days, but just
Oh
write it out.
no.
And so yeah, so that was probably a big whoopsie moment. Just thinking, I'll just inject some meds and not think too hard about the dosage. Don't do that, kids.
No.
It's not fun. Trust me.
They're all lessons,
Uh,
right? You learn
yeah,
from
that's
these
right. Yeah,
moments.
yeah, that's right. Yeah, ones you can learn from are the good ones.
Yeah, that's right. You can bounce back from that. That's good. Finally, what's something you wish that you knew when you were diagnosed? Obviously, your diagnosis was a little bit different to mine and a lot of people's, but what's something that you wish you knew when you were diagnosed?
Yeah, probably don't go too hard too quick. There's probably that one. Just that idea that there's lots of options, and just try something. If it works, fantastic. Keep with it. If it
Yeah.
doesn't work, that's okay. Just adjust. I just keep. It's just not something where you have to win the race straight away. You can just adjust, find things that, because yeah, it's well and good trying stuff to sort of manage type 1, but it's got to be sustainable. It's got to something that can fit your lifestyle and fit things that are happening in your life. And so yeah, you don't have to get it all right all at once. Just try stuff. If it works, keep it. If it doesn't work, try something else.
Yeah, I think that's great advice. And thank you for sharing all your learnings and lessons and a bit about you. It's great to get to know you a bit more before we dive into what you do and all the fun stuff that you've been doing recently. So for everyone who's listening, the ATTD, and that's a really tough acronym, ATTD, what's the conference all about? Do you mind just providing a bit of a scene setting for everyone who's listening?
Yeah. So this year I actually attended virtually. I couldn't quite get there. I had my flights booked. I was going to get there, but unfortunately, the war in Iran, when I was flying through the Middle East to get there from Australia
bummer.
up to Barcelona, that killed the flights, unfortunately. And it
Yeah.
was by the time I discovered that was the case, it was too hard to rebook.
Yeah.
But I did attend virtually, thankfully. But yeah, the ATTD conference, you're right.
It's going to be a tough one.
It's basically a technology and diabetes conference. So it runs around in Europe in different cities. It's been going since 2008.
Oh, wow.
And each year it's a different city. Although Barcelona, and I've been attending for the last 5 years or thereabouts through a program called DDoc. And 5 years ago it was in Barcelona, and again it was in Barcelona this time. But yeah, it's the year before it was in Amsterdam, the Florence. It's been in Berlin. So it's been in a variety of cities around Europe. But basically it's a conference focused on technology, both in terms of medication technology. So it's not just about pumps and CGMs, etc. But yeah, it's about medications as well, and advancements in medications, advancements in things like transplants, which we'll talk about, I imagine, in a little bit, as well as things like pens, pumps, and physical devices.
Yeah, cool. Okay, so it's an annual conference essentially for basically all things diabetes, and it's a global,
all kinds of tech.
Yeah.
Tech advancements.
Awesome. And when you think back to the conference that's just been this year, and obviously you had to attend virtually, anything that sticks out in your mind or any key themes that really stick out to you to look ahead to?
Yeah, look, there's a few areas that he was talking about. Certainly, yeah, transplantation. So the innovations around putting islet cells in the body, or in one case, modifying other body cells to produce insulin, which is pretty exciting.
Wow.
Things like automated insulin delivery, otherwise called looping. And so some advancements there and improving that. AI is becoming a big factor at the conference. So working out how they can use AI to improve the lives of people with diabetes in a variety of ways. And yeah, adjunct therapies was another one that came up. That was another key theme. But yeah, they're probably the main ones I can think of. But yeah, it's all things, I would say, all things technology improvements and innovations.
Yeah, I imagine AI is going to be a big one in the space in the next few years.
Yeah, they're pushing it. I did a talk last year. I did a talk on AI because a while ago I built an AI bot that could read AGP graphs. So the ambulatory glucose profile, the ones where it says you're within range, and then you go to dinner, you have dinner and it spikes, and those ones. So I trained an AI to read that, and so I presented on that. But the key themes were more around, you've got to do this right. Be very careful about where your data's going, how you've trained the bot, what messages that bot comes back and controlling those messages so they're responsible advice. And so it's certainly a big theme, but we've got to be careful. We've got
Yeah,
to make sure we're using AI correctly and appropriately.
definitely. Was there anything in terms of the AI and on that train that really made you think, wow, or anything that's practical that's coming that you can see actually revolutionizing day-to-day diabetes care?
In terms of AI, it's all pretty new. They're still working it out. So there was a few things which they were pushing. So one was digital twins. And they're calling it digital twins, but it's this idea
And
that you can have a virtual version of yourself in some form. And so the one of the big talks was this idea that you've got you got a CGM and you've got your pump and you've got all this data. And so in principle, we could feed that into a machine and it would have a reasonable idea of your physiological responses. So
wow,
when we're introducing a new, then we're saying, yeah, maybe for your basal, let's add another 10 units a day or whatever it is, right? Whatever the adjustment is. The idea is that they could then feed that into the twin first, the digital twin first, see how it responds, see if it generates more hypos. And then if that's reasonable and doesn't do anything, then we'll try it on the real person. It's a
wow,
nice idea. It's still pretty early.
yeah,
But they've got some nice ideas around that. They were talking about pattern matching in pumps, so using AI to recognize the patterns day to day. And the concern I have there is that's well and good that for most of our days we do similar stuff. We might have a 9 to 5 job, so Monday to Friday we're going to 9 to 5 job, and we're eating lunch probably a similar time with our colleagues.
mhm,
On the weekends, we might have certain activities that we do every weekend. But my concern is then I go on holiday.
mm,
And so the AI has been trained on my
yeah,
working life, and then I go on holiday,
yeah,
and it's suddenly giving me insulin when it shouldn't, and now I'm away from home and
yeah,
my doctor and all the rest of it.
yeah,
So I was a bit nervous about that one. The other one, which was sort of we saw a few people trying this, was carb counting apps. So people are trying to make these carb counting apps now, where you just take a photo of your food or
yeah,
something like this, and it tells you how many carbs, and they're getting mixed results. So if it's like an apple or something that's obviously recognizable, it does a pretty good job, right? It can say, oh, it's an apple, it's got this many carbs, no
mhm,
worries. If
mhm,
it's a mixed meal,
mm,
especially if it's a mixed meal where the scale's not obvious, whether it's on a saucer or whether it's on a dinner plate or somewhere in between, or it can't work out the size of the bowl that the rice is in or something like this,
yeah,
it struggles a lot more. So those apps have still got a way to go, unfortunately.
yeah,
But they were probably the key themes from an AI perspective, anyway.
yeah. And when you think about those apps too, the carb counting apps, there's just so many parameters. Like if you take a picture of two people's bowls of soup, they're going to be completely different
Yeah.
ingredients. There's different carbs in those ingredients. So that's a tricky one. I imagine that'll be a bit of a work in progress. A bit
Yeah,
more.
I remember I saw one last year in Amsterdam, and they were presenting on stage, and they're saying that you can go to WhatsApp and you can describe your food, and it will give you carbs back.
Mm,
And the one I always test is avocado, because avocado doesn't have a lot of digestible carbohydrates, but it's got lots of fiber. It's got lots of indigestible carbohydrates,
yeah.
what we call fiber, right?
Mm,
But because the app was built by an American, and Americans deal more with total carbs when they do
yeah.
their calculations.
Yeah.
It was suggesting that this avocado it has lots of carbohydrates, and so I went up to them afterwards and said, "Look, there's a concept of net carbs and total carbs, and because they weren't a person with diabetes, they had no idea what I was talking about. So I had to explain.
Yeah.
Maybe you want to at least have the option of
Yeah.
using net carbs, digestible carbs, as opposed to just a sort of a total carbs where fiber doesn't necessarily have a strong effect on your blood sugars."
Yeah. Fascinating. If you think about, I guess, the technology and innovation that you saw at the conference on the whole, was there something that really stood out to you that's a potential game changer?
Yeah, so as I say, there's a lot of activity. It's still early days, and we're not going to see this for years, but there's a lot of activity around transplantable, so that the innovations of transplants.
Yeah.
So one of them was getting muscle cells and modifying them via a virus to start making insulin. And so they've done this in animals, and it works. And yeah, they're about to start human trials on that. But yeah, basically they can get a muscle cell that's in the body, and yeah, they can make it make insulin just like a beta cell would, which is crazy.
Yeah. Right.
There's another one where they would get beta cells and they would modify the cells so that they were effectively invisible to the immune system. So they would just hack the DNA of them. And they injected those beta cells into the muscle of someone because they were easily accessible in the muscle if they did anything too crazy. But again, those cells were just running and they were producing insulin and the immune system wasn't attacking them to
Wow.
that purpose. And then the last one is they were doing eyelid injections and then using an immune suppressant drug, but it was a much more targeted one that's currently being used for I can't remember which disease. Another disease. It's called tegoprubart is the drug. And so you're using this immune suppressant drug, but it's a much more targeted one. So it doesn't have the sort of broad spectrum bad effects that normal immune suppressants have. And so these people weren't getting any more infections than a control group. And their cells were working after, I think it was either 12 months or 14 months, 10 out of 12 of them no longer needed insulin. And these are people with type 1 diabetes. So there's a lot of really exciting stuff. Sort of, the horizon's still quite far away. So I was saying some of these cases, the human test is still coming. I mentioned them on CAM-APS. CAM-APS came out and said they've got an official closed loop version of their software. So I'm just using the normal commercial one and just using it without bolusing, which you're not supposed to do, but there it is. But they've actually released a version which they say you won't need to bolus for meals. Exercise is still a problem for looping systems. So exercise, I imagine it probably doesn't handle as well as it needs to. But they claim that you can use this one and you don't need to bolus for meals, which would be remarkable. So because it's a software update, potentially that could come out here pretty quickly.
Wow. Yeah.
So we wouldn't have to worry so much. And the other one that I saw, which hopefully will come relatively soon, is a dual sensor. So Abbott announced a dual sensor. So just like a CGM sensor, which does blood sugar, this one also does ketones. So potentially it would tell you if you're heading into DKA, or for the keto folk, they can see if they're in ketosis or not and stuff like that. And again, I've seen other presentations where they've used these sensors, and type 1s occasionally just produce ketones, even though they're not, in a bad way. They're not going keto, and they're not in ketosis. The human body just produces ketones occasionally, and they hadn't realized that until they started using these ketone sensors.
Yeah.
So I think there's a lot to be discovered around what the body does around ketone production. And I think we're going to be finding out some interesting stuff. But hopefully that dual sensor will come out. I think that'll help looping systems to be a bit more smart around when they need to give insulin and what's happening in the body, and hopefully it'll save a few people from DKA.
Yeah, absolutely. That's actually really smart. I mean, it's hard when you hear these things. It's so hard to believe that things like that don't already exist. Like there isn't already a sensor that tests ketones as well as blood sugar level. But fascinating to hear everything that's coming out, and it sort of it gives you a little bit of hope, which is nice. Obviously, every now and again you'll stumble across a news article that's you don't know whether to believe it or not. But when you hear these things coming out of conferences where there's big researchers and clinicians, it does actually genuinely give you a bit of hope, which is nice. Is that how you feel, having attended these conferences over the years, and obviously this one?
Yeah, no, it's good to hear what's coming, and it's interesting. Innovation in healthcare seems to travel at a really rapid pace and also at a glacial pace.
Yes.
It kind of follows both. So you get these. So I remember 9 years ago when I first got diagnosed, looping, like automated insulin delivery, where the pump's talking to the CGM, that was kind of really cutting edge, and the only people who were doing it were hackers online, and there was no commercial systems. And now it's certainly in the West, in the sort of us privileged places in the world, it's commonplace. And in the case of the UK, then it's standard treatment now, I believe. I think the nice recommendations over there mean that anyone with type 1 gets a looping system. But then you hear about these transplant stuff, and it's going to be at least another 10 years. So you get this rapid innovation, and then it sort of hits this wall where now we've got to get approvals, now we've got to get into different countries. And Australia's generally not a first market for a lot of this stuff, so it'll be a bit slow getting here. But it's always exciting. It's always energizing to attend these conferences and see the passion of the researchers and the things they're coming up with.
Yeah, and on the researchers as well, if we turn our attention to that for just a little bit, what's the research sort of telling us, and what did you notice in the sessions from research point of view?
In what sense? How do you mean?
I guess just anyone if there's any breakthroughs in terms of research, like you mentioned transplants, is there any big news coming out of the research sort of industries?
So there was certainly in terms of adjunct therapy, so there's a lot more evidence coming. So maybe I'll talk about those. So in terms of using what have been traditionally type 2 medications, for example, so things like Ozempic, Mounjaro, which are what are a class of drugs called GLP-1s. So there's evidence that they work well for type 1s and people can lose weight and all the rest of it. But there's growing evidence that they're really beneficial for type 1s as well. And in terms of for my own personal experience using, currently I use Ozempic. With Ozempic, it's literally reduced my total daily dose of insulin by a third. So I use a third of the insulin that I use every day. And this is pretty common, even on smaller doses. People, I know anecdotally, people have said that. And at the conference, they were showing that evidence. Similarly, they're looking. There was another class of drugs called SGLT2s, which when your blood sugars go high, it redirects the sugar into the urine, and you basically pee out the sugar. And they were seen a while ago as quite a something that would revolutionize type 1 management. But unfortunately, people were getting quite a few hypos on it. But now the research is sort of looking at, if we use an SGLT2, and if we have a looping system which can sort of catch that before it causes too many problems, whereas a person's on multiple daily injections, they're not necessarily on top of it as much. And so they're starting to look at low dose SGLT2s with an automated insulin delivery system and seeing a lot of benefit there. So there's some good evidence coming in the research, which some of us that have been sort of playing with this stuff for a while go, it's obvious, but obviously they got to get the evidence and they got to prove it so they can make it real.
Yeah.
The one which I really want to come out to Australia, which isn't here yet, is inhalable insulin.
Yes.
So there's this product called Afrezza, which you literally, it's just a little whistle and you suck it up and it acts really quickly. It gets into the bloodstream really quickly. And they're looking at that plus again that and AID systems. So where the AID systems might be not quite up to the task. So if you eat a super carby meal or eat pizza or something like this, then the idea would be you'd have the little whistle, you'd suck up some insulin, and that would sort of take the edge off to help the AID system. So they're looking at those things as well. There was also stuff for type 2. So looking at a lot of benefit for Mounjaro and type 2. So they're looking at practical remission. So apparently the standard advice at the moment is you have someone with type 2, and then if other treatments don't work, then you put them on something like Mounjaro, and then they lose weight and all the rest of it. But one of the studies looked at giving a Mounjaro pretty much straight away, and it had tremendous benefit. Their HbA1cs dropped straight away, practical remission for a lot of them. Some really interesting results there, just sort of refining what they already know. And growing evidence for the use of CGMs with type 2 diabetes, which the evidence hasn't been strong so far, but there's growing evidence that it can provide benefit, especially to insulin-dependent people with type 2.
Yeah, fascinating. That inhalable insulin, I've heard a little bit about that, bits and pieces. Is that available yet in the US market or anything like that, or is that still
Oh yeah,
coming?
no, it's been in
It
the US
is.
for years. And
Yeah.
I had a guy when I used to run a monthly sort of catch up of type 1. So there was a guy over here in Australia who used to import it, but it was like $1,000 a month. I don't know how he's affording it, but he was using it. So he brought it and showed it. Yeah, we all got to have a look. But yeah, no, it's been in the US for years. There's the studies are becoming more prevalent to get the evidence for it. And the only thing really keeping it from the Australian market these days is the company lodging it with the appropriate authorities to get it approved.
Right.
It's an established product. It works.
Yeah.
And if in the US you can get it prescribed like you can injectable insulin.
Yeah. Wow, fascinating. I'd love to see that come out here and just see. I'd love to try it, just see how it affects. How different it is. Do you know on the inhalable? Do you know how that gets into the bloodstream quicker?
Basically, yeah, it just goes into the lungs and the lungs transfer it straight in.
Wow.
And yeah, so it goes in like oxygen goes in,
Yeah.
kind of thing.
Yeah,
So I think it's something like 5 minutes. It starts showing activity.
Wow.
Peaking after 15. So yeah, literally you have it as your meal comes out, and you just do it as you're about to eat.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's none of this pre-bolusing
Yeah.
fun that we have with the slower insulins.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fun.
And
No, cool.
anecdotally, and I be careful, don't take this as medical advice, kids. Anecdotally, I hear that it's pretty hard to overdose on it. Something to do with, even if you take too much, the body somehow resists the shock of it somehow. So
Yeah.
I'm not sure exactly how that works, but I
Hmm.
hear it because of the rapid, there's some kind of physiological effect because it comes in so rapidly
Yeah.
that it's not as prone to giving you a low as other methods of getting
Yeah.
insulin.
Interesting. Well, watch this space. Hopefully, we might see that
Yeah,
hit the
yeah.
shores in the not too distant future. Now, you actually presented at the ATTD this year. Is that correct?
Well, I because I wasn't there, I couldn't present, but I did have a couple of posters. So, and I've done this for a few years, right? So I remember I attended the first ATTD virtually, and now I got on their mailing list. And then the next year, I was lucky enough through DDoC, which is an online organization that sends diabetes advocates to conferences like this. I got an email which said, "Oh, look, if you want to put in an abstract, like an academic abstract, then now's your time, right?" And I'd had a couple of gin and tonics and thought, yeah, this seems like a really good idea.
We're all good idea.
Yeah, so I put in because I've written a blog about basically how to diagnose type 1. So there've been a couple of international consensus papers around how to diagnose type 1, how to diagnose LADA, and how to diagnose type 2, but they weren't linked. It was all 3 separate papers. So on my blog, I'd merge them together.
Mhm.
I thought, maybe that'll be a topic worthwhile. And so that was a few years ago, and they accepted it. I was gobsmacked that some guy who doesn't have a medical degree at all, they'd accept the paper, but they did. They accepted it, and so I had a poster in that
Awesome.
second one that I attended. And so I've been doing it ever since. I'll just put in a few posters, see what lands. And yeah, I got it this year. I managed to get in a couple. So one, many years ago, I did an MBA. And when you do an MBA, they teach you about motivation theory and how to get employees to do the bidding of the organization, basically align their internal motivations and goals to the strategic goals of the organization. And it struck me that there's a parallel there between the doctor who has ideas about what the person with diabetes should be doing, and the person with diabetes having a life that means it's not always going to work for them. And so what this poster was is talking about this sort of proven corporate model and how it could possibly be used in the diabetes world, and building this sort of framework so that healthcare professionals can have a conversation using this model and help better align their advice and their recommendations to the person with diabetes, so that there's more success there. So that was the post number one. The second one was, as I mentioned, I got that consensus one in a few years ago. What I've started to do now is, and I got it published. I actually got it published as a paper a couple of years ago in Diabetes Management Journal here in Australia, which goes out to all the endos. But what I'm in the process of doing now, and this is what the poster was talking about, is creating an online tool. So any healthcare professional can go to the online tool, and they can just basically go through the flow diagram through the online tool. So step one, have you done these tests? Yes, you have. What were the results? Okay, now do this test. And they go through it. So I've started building that as an online tool so that anyone can just go to the website and can do it. And the idea there is, I was pretty lucky that my GP had enough knowledge to know what tests to do to get me the correct diagnosis from type 2 rather than LADA.
Yeah.
But not all GPs are going to be in that boat. So this tool, I'm hoping, is something that can be used to sort of minimize those misdiagnoses and making sure people are getting the right test done at the right time to get them the diagnosis and then the treatment that they need.
Yeah, well, it's a brilliant idea. Anything to help assist the process at all, I think, be it diagnosis or following, I think is really helpful just to make things easier. Like everything's hard enough as it is. So to make things a little bit easier is always really helpful. That's brilliant. If I get you to put your practical diabetic hat on, what changes discussed at ATTD feel most likely to improve quality of life rather than just numbers, on a graph?
Yeah, so the stuff that I think is going to be coming soon, and which is going to provide benefit certainly in the short term, it's certainly those adjunct therapies. So I think, and there's already endocrinologists out there that are prescribing things like Ozempic for people with type 1, even though and they're allowed to do it. It's not illegal to do that. It's just what's called private prescription, which means we have to pay full price, which means it's not affordable to some people with type 1 diabetes, even though there's established benefit now. So I think we'll start seeing those adjunct therapies, as they call them, starting to get approved and subsidized. So things like the Ozempics, things like they mentioned what are called SGLT2Is, the ones that redirect the glucose into the bladder. I think we'll start seeing those being prescribed and subsidized in certain circumstances and with certain criteria attached to them. In terms of let's have a think. The AI carb counting, I think, still got some work to go. I think it'll get there in the medium. Maybe that's more medium term,
Hmm.
but it'll get there. Again, more evidence. The AIDs improving. So the AID systems, those looping systems, are improving and now becoming practically closed loop for the sake of food. I think that's going to help massively with the cognitive load. And
Yeah.
as I say, the Liberty version of CAM APS that's coming out should be just a software update. And because it's a software update, it shouldn't need to go through formal approvals, because that's generally the approvals for the hardware more than the software.
Yeah.
So that should come out relatively soon. In the medium term, probably that Abbott sensor. I can see the glucose ketone monitor providing benefits. Certainly, yeah, I imagine the online community will probably make use of that ketone information first in terms of the online looping systems, but then the commercial ones will catch up and they'll bring it in. And then in long term stuff that we won't see for a while, obviously the islet transplant stuff we're not going to see for a while. The other stuff we were seeing there were things like non-invasive sensors, and so this has been on the
Yeah.
table for a while. They've been trying to get non-invasive sensors to work, and they're sort of slowly making headway there. The other one's the Eversense, which is an implantable sensor. So it's one that goes
Okay.
under the skin, 6F for 6 months,
Wow.
and just gives you continuous CGM. You still wear a sensor on top, like a reader on top, if you like. So the reader that sits on top
Yeah.
sits above it. But the actual sensor itself is embedded in skin, so you don't get this you have to change every 10 days business.
Yeah. Wow.
You just get it sort of stuck as a little thing under the skin. So that stuff will come out. I imagine that'll take some while to get approvals. That's probably more long term. But yeah, just those kinds of innovations, those kind of interesting things, I think will just make life a bit easier or provide options. And the options is always the thing we need, right? To work
Yeah.
out what works for us.
Absolutely.
More options are better.
Yeah. And fascinating that sensor under the skin. That's quite an
Yeah,
interesting one, because I know from my personal standpoint, I dread, every 7 days having to change the sensor in my arm. It's one of those tasks that I do not enjoy doing at all. So that's really interesting to hear.
Yeah, and that's been in the US for a while now. So that's
True.
well established in the US, like the inhalable insulin. It's well established over there. So hopefully at some point they'll seek approval to get it into the Australian market, and that'll be great.
Fascinating. Yeah, just more options. More options are really good
Yeah,
for people.
that's what it is.
Yeah, brilliant. To wrap up, I suppose, ATTD, if you had to boil it down to one message for someone who's listening on their commute right now or wherever they might be tuning in, what would you tell them about the future of diabetes tech and care?
Yeah, look, there's innovation coming all the time, right? So there's always every year there's something new. They incrementally advance their knowledge and understanding. So type 2 CGM is a great example, right? So they've shown some benefit last year, and this year they've done more studies and they show a bit more benefit. And there's always new ideas like the non-invasive sensors coming out. So again, there's probably the one message is every year, and you can, if you go to a site like PubMed, right? So you Google PubMed, you can see there's thousands of papers coming out, or hundreds to thousands of papers coming out literally every month. Not even every year, every month. There's hundreds of papers. So there's lots of innovation happening in the space. It's an area of a lot of interest, and it's really exciting. It's really exciting that there's new stuff coming constantly. How quickly it'll arrive here, well, that's another matter. That's to say that it moves fast and it moves glacially, depending on which sort of part of the process it's in. But the one message is there's lots of innovation, and it's very exciting. And while the cure might not be 5 years away, certainly there's people dedicated to finding that cure and making lives better for people with type 1.
Yeah, and just making lives
and
easier.
type 2.
Yeah, making lives easier for both type 1 and type 2. It's a really exciting space, isn't it? I mean, the technology, it's constantly evolving. There's new things coming. I think back to when I was just on finger pricks and the old NMS pump, like to now be on a CGM and an insulin pump where I wake up and forget that I'm diabetic because it does everything for me overnight. Like, it is really exciting. It's really interesting to hear what's coming up around the bend, hopefully. Now, I always ask every guest that we have on, just to wrap up the episode, what's one piece of advice or a thought that you'd give to someone who's newly diagnosed with diabetes?
Yeah, probably the first thing is get a good healthcare team. By a good healthcare team, I don't mean necessarily the best experts in their field. Getting people that are experts in their field is obviously desirable. But what I mean by a good healthcare team is one you can work with, one where you go to them, if you're scared to go to your endocrinologist, that's the wrong endocrinologist, right? These are consultants. You're paying them money generally, they are providing a service.
Yeah.
You're not doing them any favors by turning it. So they're providing you a service. They've got to be people that you can work with. So get a good healthcare team that you can work with, that you're comfortable with, that you can trust, and who you can ask questions of. You say, look, I've seen this. This guy Leon was talking about this drug. What are your thoughts? And having those conversations with them where they're not just going to shut you down and say, oh yeah, right, but have a real conversation with you. So get that team that you can trust.
Mm-hmm.
Probably the other thing is find out what works for you. A little while ago, I wrote a blog online for one of the diabetes centers, and I talked about the 4 levers of diabetes, which is exercise, food, pills, and technology. And some people use different ones, right? And so in the article, I say, well, here's this person, this social media character, and they're using food and exercise, and they're doing brilliantly. There's someone like me that uses more technology and pills. But you got these 4 levers. Find out which works for you. And there's not one solution to any of this, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's not one solution that fits all, and there's plenty of people online that will tell you there's only one way to manage diabetes, but it's nonsense. There's plenty of ways that work. It's just finding the one that works for you.
Yeah, everyone's diabetes is different. There's not one that's the same. I reckon that's all very different.
Yeah. Oh, and everyone's lives are different, right? So some stuff works. If I'm a contact rugby player, then maybe a CGM and a wearable pump's not the way to go.
No.
Right? So it really depends on who you are, what your life is, and finding stuff that's sustainable.
Yeah, absolutely. No, that's brilliant advice. And finally, if people want to follow along with the Practical Diabetic, where can people find you?
Yeah, so I've got my blog, which is practicaldiabetic.com. I'll tweet. So I'm Practical D because Practical Diabetic's too long for the handle on Twitter. So I'm Practical D, and I'm on Twitter. If you hate Twitter X, because it is reasonably toxic these days. Also, and I'm reasonably quiet unless I go to conferences. Then I'm live tweeting and live messaging when I'm at the conferences. But I'm also on Threads and Blue Sky, so you can find me there as well. We've also got an Etsy shop, and yeah, you've covered my pens before, so I sell the insulin writing pens, and also pill boxes made out of pocket watches. So if you're interested in either of those, you can find my Etsy store, which is Pocket Watch Pillbox.
Brilliant.
So you can find me there as well.
There you go. I do remember receiving one of these pens. I think it was a couple of years back now. And I remember looking at it and I thought, why have I got an insulin pen here? And no, it's an actual pen.
Yeah.
Really cool stuff. Definitely go check it out. Check out the blog. But Leon, thank you so much for your time today. And thank you for giving us all hope, I think, because, it's really exciting to hear what's coming, what's around the corner potentially. So thank you for sharing your knowledge and your insight into what's coming.
No, it's my pleasure. Thanks for having me. And yeah, it genuinely is exciting time.
Yeah, thank you.
Strip Supply acknowledges the traditional owners of the land we have recorded this podcast on. We pay our respects to their elders past, present, and emerging.